Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, with the second of three presentations that point the finger of blame for World War I on Germany. This time looking at what resulted from what was largely the Kaiser's policy of Weltpolitik. Now if I begin with Middle Africa, we immediately think of Morocco, which was linked by the Germans to gains in the French Congo. Now I have devoted a presentation to the Moroccan crises, which I won't repeat, but I can still link it to World War I because of the War Council, attended by Wilhelm and his service chiefs, that met in December 1912 in the wake of the Second Moroccan Crisis, and while the First Balkan War was being fought out. Now it was not a meeting to plan a war, rather to ensure Germany was prepared should war break out. Still, the Kaiser did express his concern that Austria-Hungary would need to act vigorously against the Serbs if it was not to lose its authority, and his conviction that should Russia support the Serbs in any future conflict against Austria-Hungary, then German involvement would be inevitable. And it was concluded that Russia should be attacked, the sooner the better, before Russia's growing strength would make German victory impossible. Plans were put in place to get the army in a state of readiness for war, and to increase its size again, as well as to widen the Kiel Canal, so that battleships could be moved from the Baltic to the North Sea. A press and propaganda campaign targeting Russia was also launched. By 1914, many German leaders felt that a preventative war was not only desirable, but was essential, as Austria-Hungary seemed incapable of preventing the growth of Serbian and Russian influence in the Balkans. Now, Russia was not directly involved in the Moroccan crises, but nevertheless, the War Council shows how Germany had been given a fright, and how it sensed its vulnerability. And let's not forget that during the Second Moroccan Crisis, Helmuth von Moltke, head of the German army, had laid out his thoughts. If we once again crawl out of this affair with our tail between our legs, if we cannot pull ourselves together and take an energetic line which we are ready to back up with the sword, well, I despair of the future of the German Empire, and shall quit. So, the crisis had helped enhance a militaristic attitude in Germany. So to Middle Europa. One issue that became a cause of international concern was the building of the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. Potentially, the railway would link the heart of Europe to the heart of the Middle East, and so would be extremely strategically as well as economically important. Much was written in Germany about our railway, and the extension of German world power in Central Europe as well as the Middle East. At the height of the bidding for the third concession, the railway was built in stages. In 1898, the Kaiser had visited Constantinople and the Holy Land, taking the opportunity to promise friendship to Muslims throughout the world. The British and Germans clashed over the rights to the line when it extended from Baghdad to the port of Basra on the Persian Gulf. Whilst for Russia, growing German influence in Constantinople, the city it most coveted, was a matter of great concern. And that brings me to the Lehmann von Sanders affair, which almost brought Russia and Germany to war. That it did so was largely down to the blundering personal foreign policy of Wilhelm, who without the knowledge of his Chancellor Bethmann Hollweg arranged with the Turkish government to send General Otto Lehmann von Sanders, along with 40 officers, to command a Turkish army corps, the First Ottoman Army Corps, based in Constantinople. For Germany, it presented almost unlimited opportunities, enhancing German economic interests, establishing an important sphere of influence that might prove useful in any future war, bottling up the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And it even gave the possibility of making Turkey a German protectorate. The Russians, though, were furious. Germany was encroaching on an area of such vital interest to Russia that it couldn't be tolerated. A compromise was reached, but as Morocco had alerted Britain to the dangers of Weltpolitik, the Sanders affair had alerted Russia. Finally, the third strand to Weltpolitik, German naval power. For Germany, it seemed that a strong navy was the key to world power status, something it craved. Germany did not set out to match Britain's naval strength. It knew this would be unachievable, but it did set out to build a navy of such strength as to deter a British attack, lest Britain suffer losses on a scale as to severely weaken its own naval strength. A powerful German navy would also provide a market to further stimulate Germany's iron and steel industry. For Britain, however, naval power was vital if its world empire was to be protected, and any challenge to its naval supremacy had to be met. Now, while the Anglo-German naval race that ensued can be seen as the last attempt to frighten Britain into an alliance, it in fact had the reverse effect, as Britain showed itself determined not to be bullied into anything. And Germany's failure to reach an accommodation with Britain was to have profound consequences, as it made Germany wholly reliant on Austria-Hungary. Italy's support could never be relied on, and Germany knew it. And it led Germany to see itself, not Britain, as isolated, indeed encircled by hostile powers. The reactions to Weltpolitik were profound. In Britain, the Foreign Office, traditionally isolationist, was increasingly viewing Germany as a threat that would one day have to be met. The Moroccan crises had led Herr Crow in the Foreign Office to liken Germany to a blackmailer, and as with all blackmailers, he argued that its demands would only increase unless its bluff was called. Whilst the Sanders affair had led Tsar Nicholas to tell the British ambassador that Germany was aiming at acquiring such a position at Constantinople as would enable it to shut in Russia altogether in the Black Sea. Should she attempt to carry out this policy, he would have to resist it with all his power, even if war should be the only alternative. What's more, in the first decade of the 20th century, the German press and some of its politicians began to voice a concern that Germany was encircled by hostile powers, intent on preventing Germany from gaining its rightful place as a great power, and even seeking to help France regain Alsace and Lorraine. Consequently, in the Balkan crises of 1908-9 and 1912-13, Germany gave her full support to Austria-Hungary, which on both occasions meant going to war to support her, if that proved necessary. So we can see that Germany must take some blame in raising tensions and causing other powers to see it as a real threat. I do hope this has been useful for you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tell your friends about it. Make me feel wanted. But for now, let me thank you for listening, and let me wish you the very best of luck in your studies. Cheers.